keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio Show. Once again with your host, Nick Bernabe, here on UCY.tv and the antimedia.org/radio. I'm really happy to be back with you. Hope everybody had a great weekend. We're here Monday through Friday here on UCY, the Anti-Media, same place, same time. We have a bunch of different hosts, though, so you don't got to hear me talking every night if you do decide to listen or become a regular listener to the Anti-Media. There's a bunch of different voices. We have a bunch of different artists and guests and featured speakers. And our last show on Wednesday was awesome. We had a band on, we had an activist on, we had an artist on. I mean, it was pretty good. So anyway, we're going to be working to bring you more of that kind of stuff as we continue to shift into we're hoping to shift into a 2-hour program here. So we're going to be mixing it up with a bunch of different aspects to the show to kind of spice it up and bring some life into it, that kind of thing. We've been going at it for a couple of years now. Me and my longtime co-host DB Schwartz. What's up, DB? How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing good, Nick. I'm just anxious to hear about your guys' adventures in Philly.
Well, I didn't go to Philly, but we are going to talk to one of our team members that was out there at the Free Your Mind conference. So that should be interesting. And it was nice having you in town, man, back in the studio. What was that, last show, right, on Wednesday? That's another reason why this show was so awesome on Wednesday. Not only did we have a bunch of great guests, the band, DB was back in the studio. We used to do almost all the shows here in studio, but you moved out to Minnesota. Are you back out there now?
Yeah, I'm back, man, and it was in the 70s. It was actually kind of hot when you get used to being kind of cold, so...
Yeah, it was like 90 today in San Diego. It was like too hot for comfort, actually.
Damn you, climate change!
The Santa Ana wind started blowing in, and anyway. We're also joined tonight by our awesome journalist, Claire Bernish. What's up, Claire?
Not much. What's up?
Oh, hanging in there. I went down to Mexico yesterday. I went to Ensenada, which is this really awesome kind of beach town down about an hour and a half south of San Diego. I live down in Chula Vista, which is actually really close to the border. It only takes me like 10 minutes to drive there, and actually I could leave my house and be in Mexico within 10 minutes, but it's a whole different story coming back, which is something I wanted to briefly touch on because it has affected me today, because I was sitting there in the damn car for 3 hours last night breathing in fumes, and now I feel like shit today because I'm trying to get back home and I'm trying to cross the border, and it took 3 hours. It took 3 hours for me to cross the damn border yesterday to get back into the United States, And as I said, I'm sitting there. There's diesel trucks everywhere. You're breathing all this shit in. You can't roll the windows. You can't roll the windows up, turn the AC on because your car will overheat because you're sitting in one spot for so long. So you got to keep the windows down. It was hot last night, and it was just I had such a great time in Mexico. Such a nice place, Ensenada Beach. Food. I mean, I had what would cost like $150 dinner here in the United States. Cost me like $40 down there. I had like a yellowfin tuna like steak. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was only like $40, but getting back, it was just a pain in the ass, and this border stuff really affected me today. And there's people that have to go through that every single day of their lives, pretty much, and it's not a fun time. I know our other co-host, SM Gibson, when he was in town, I took him down to Tijuana on a Sunday, and we sat there. We walked down across the border and walked back. We were in line coming back for 6 hours, standing there for 6 hours. And it's just it's a mess. I mean, I was just sitting there in that line. I'm like, why in the hell are people like not allowed to just freely travel around this world? I mean, aren't we civilized? It's crazy. But I was just thinking about how we restrict the migration of human beings more than we restrict the migration of animals. Think about if someone said, "Oh, we're going to build a big net at the border so that the butterflies and the birds can't fly south because we don't want them being unwelcome guests in Mexico." I mean, people would be outraged, right? It'd be like, "What? I can't believe you're not going to let the butterflies cross." But I guess when it comes to human beings, people don't have as much sympathy because human beings aren't. I've been fighting with this idea for a long time about why people give a shit more about animals than they do about human beings. When a dog gets shot by a cop, it's like, oh my god, that poor dog. When a young black male gets shot by a cop, it's like, oh, that guy was a thug, and he probably deserved it. He shouldn't have robbed the liquor store for a cigar. And apparently in America that's a death warrant. But I've been playing with this idea for a while now. I'm trying to figure out, why is it that people truly do give a shit about animals? At least superficially, people pretend to care about animals more than they care about human beings. I know deep down people probably don't give a shit about animals either, just like they don't give a shit about human beings, but at least they pretend they do, right? And I've been wondering about this, and I wanted to ask you guys about this. What is it? First, I'll go to DB. Why do you think this is?
I think it's just exactly as you say, man. It's people putting themselves in other people's shoes and putting their own situations in other people's lives and thinking, well, I wouldn't have put myself in that position. I would have done this better. I would have done that different. That's what it is, man. And it had no choice. It was just following its instincts.
Yeah, that's a good point. I had a caller, but I had to drop the call because they didn't mute their radio in the background or their microphone. I could hear the feedback. Caller from 317, if you want to call back in, feel free to. I forgot to mention the rules of the call here. We're very much dictators when it comes to accepting calls on this show. If you do call in, the number is 718-717-8296. The only basic rules that we have is that you got to mute your mic and turn off your radio so that we don't hear ourselves talking, because who wants to hear themselves talking, honestly? And we'll come to you. We'll say, hey, caller from 718, you're on the Anti-Media Radio, and then that'll be your cue to unmute your mic, and then you'll be free to talk about whatever you want, or we'll ask you a question, or you can stay on topic. Ideally, we stay on topic. That's what we hoped. All right, the caller's calling back in. Let's try this again and see if it works out. Caller from 317, hey, we're going to come to you in a few minutes. Make sure your microphone is muted and your radio is paused in the background.
Yeah.
And then we'll come to you in a few minutes once we get this discussion rolling. So next I wanted to go over to Claire and ask you the same question. What is it? What is it about animals that people actually get more upset when animals are harmed than when it happens to humans?
I really think that people feel, I feel kind of like DB. I think people feel that animals are intrinsically kind of inherently innocent, if you will. And human beings, I think people tend to look at other human beings and find culpability no matter what. Like, the person had to have been at fault because, we have this freedom of thought and we can make our decisions. And I think people, for the large part, tend to assume that somebody more or less deserved somehow what they got. Like, if they met a fate that is so terrible they actually ended up dead and shot by a cop, they had to have done something to deserve it.
And that's exactly what happened with, like, Mike Brown, right, in Ferguson. It's like, oh, well, he's this big black kid, and he stole something, supposedly, and then he supposedly rushed the cops. So, I mean, apparently he just deserved to die, right? I mean, that's the kind of rationale that is going out there. And, it's wrong to think that way. It's wrong. People don't deserve to die. We have supposedly a justice system in the United States, right? And this is kind of plays back to our promotional meme for the show tonight. It talks about how the cops are let off like all the time for the shit that they do, and then the Americans for petty crimes are convicted like overwhelmingly. So definitely some issues there, and what's the word for it? A discrepancy, I guess you could say, between the way that justice is handed down to people that are part of, I guess, the ruling class. I would put cops in that because they're like the enforcer people for the ruling class or whatever. They're not technically part of the ruling class, but they work for them.
They still get foreclosed on, though, Nick.
Yeah, they do, but they don't get charged when they kill people in the street, and that's something that you and me, if we did that, we'd be serving life in jail or something bad.
But it's never like their personal gain. It's always in the line of duty. So these guys are just minions at this point.
Yeah. And the thing is, though, is that people are always, we've got this supposed justice system in the United States, the rule of law, you're supposed to, if you do a crime or you're suspected of a crime, there's a process that we go through. We don't just say, oh, this guy did this because I said so, and so we're just going to kill this guy. That's not the way it's supposed to work. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter if you think the guy is a bad person, whether it's Mike Brown or Trayvon Martin, which are the cases that, you see a lot of these people, which I don't want to blanketly say they're all racist, but a lot of people that tend to lean in that direction are always trying to make excuses when it's a black guy getting shot down by the cops. But, we can't deny that we have a system in place here where you're not supposed to just gun people down the street. I don't care what they did. You do everything in your power to not kill people, not become the executioner. You put them through trial or you give them due process or whatever first, and that's just not the case. The other side of the equation, too, is that even when people do get due process, the system is still, rigged against you. And then other people, like the perfect example right now with the election season going on, Hillary Clinton, look at all the shit that she's gotten away with, and she's not going to ever be indicted. She's never going to be charged with the crime. I'm sorry to break it to you guys. And me out of everyone, you guys know me, I would love to see Hillary Clinton charged, not for her emails, but for the war crimes that she's committed in Libya and overthrowing governments, the military coup in Honduras, and things like that she's done. She should be charged for that stuff, but she's not going to. So not only do we got cops that are becoming the executioner in the street without due process, even when people do go through due process, it's a rigged system against the poor people, and the rich people can use all these loopholes or these legal assets that they have to get their way out of it. It's just ridiculous. So before we go into some of these news stories, I'll go over to the caller from 317 because I want to see if you have anything to say about this. What do you think about this? The first thing we were talking about with this discrepancy between people caring about animals and not about humans, and then the justice system. I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah,
we hear you.
Okay. It's politicized, and so I think people have a hard time sort of recognizing what the source of their aversion to all these kinds of infringements on them is. Specifically, they can't identify it, and it's because the way that people are told to think about these issues is really schizophrenic. You see people complaining about the police and military and all these kinds of civil rights things, infractions. They see that kind of criticism of that from a libertarian right perspective, ANCAP voluntarist, anti-statist kind of criticism of that stuff. but there's no like theoretical framework behind that. Really, from someone like me, I'm an anarchist. I'm a left libertarian or anarcho-socialist or whatever you'd like to call it. But it's hierarchy. It's a rejection of hierarchy. So when some human attacks an animal, I mean, that's a hierarchy. That's an aggression that's acceptable. Generally, it's a form of hierarchy. So, I mean, all the problems that people complain about, all the things that people have specific issues about, people on the left and right take issue with specific things. They're opposing hierarchy. They don't understand how it's all connected. But what it is a hierarchical order that they're really opposed to. But they're used. That people with specific interests are using them and using this opposition to hierarchy, which is natural, in order to exploit them. So you have like right libertarians that are trying to create this like post-national free market capitalism, quote unquote free market capitalism, that's meant to promote the rights of the proprietarians, of the private property holders, against the property owners, basically. And on the left, you have, the left pointing out issues of hierarchical domination, but, avoiding their complicity in hierarchical domination simultaneously. So, people only see what they would like to see because they're being used for agendas on the left and the right that are, that it makes the whole thing schizophrenic.
Yeah, that's a great point. And like to bring it up into a little more of a mainstream, left, right, conservative, liberal thing. It's kind of like how, conservatives, they hate unions, right? We hate the unions and we don't like the government. The government's too damn big, but we love the military and we want to put more money into the military. It's like, don't you understand that a lot of the money that the government spends goes to the military? And you hate unions, but all the cops are unions, and it's like, wait, what? And then on the other hand, you got the Democrats that are supposedly against money and politics, and they're against big business, but all of their main politicians like Hillary Clinton and the like are pretty much just as bad when it comes to that kind of stuff as any of the rest. And then Obama, it's like, the left is we want to stop police militarization. Obama pretty much oversaw the militarization of the police, and later on he's like, this is a problem. We gotta fix it. It's like, dude, but you helped create that problem. So people are blinded by their party allegiances and by this, I don't know what we would call it. It's like a tribal instinct or on a micro-nationalism where it's like, I'm a Republican and I believe this and I'm going to do that, and and then they're Democrats, so we got to hate them. And it's like, it's like fighting over your favorite NFL team or something like that. That's pretty much how they play us against each other here in the United States with this Republican and Democrat stuff. And it just ends up neutralizing the public while the ruling class, the hierarchy, whatever you want to call it, gets away with literally murder or pillaging or empire or whatever. They get away with it because we're all divided up saying, you're a Republican, I hate you, and you're a Democrat, I hate you. And it is a mess. It's a big mess. So before we go into the news, caller from 317, I'm sure you called in for a reason. What did you want to talk about?
Well, I picked up what you were talking about when you started talking about that. It piqued my interest when you were talking about animals, humans in relation to animals. I mean, it's all related. It's all an aspect of hierarchical domination that any moral person, sees and doesn't want to participate or wants to stop. I think that though it's impossible to see the kinds of hierarchies that you support, that a person will support, they can't see the negatives in that because they feel that they are benefiting from that. It's like trying to talk to if you have a personal benefit from a system, you're less likely to identify the problems within that system. But it's not just the state that's the problem. It's private hierarchical power is a problem, and private property is the problem. It's not just some state issue or statism issue. It's more complex than that. It's all kinds of human interactions that are hierarchical. Like every form of human interaction that promotes social hierarchy or hierarchy between people. And you can say, oh, it's voluntary, but it's still problematic, and it still objectifies the people below. I think there's a lot of people that don't want to recognize that because they feel they're going to lose out on something. That they want to be able to live off of other people's labor. They want to benefit from this system of this pyramidal, authority, of private pyramidal power of one person over another. So it's hard to get people, whether it's a state or capitalism or anything, to actually fully acknowledge what the problem is.
Yeah, hierarchy comes with a bunch of issues. Over centralization of power and stuff like that. It's inherent, and bureaucracy and that kind of crap that gets in the way of productivity. It's inherent with hierarchy, pretty much. But that's kind of a big topic to cover. I just want to give some final thoughts on this animal issue before I move on to some of these news stories. I'm pretty much in agreement with all of you guys on this one, is that animals have this sense of innocence that adult human beings don't, because people see adult human beings and say, oh, well, every adult has done some messed up things in their lives, and they've made mistakes, and they've screwed people over, they've lied, they've cheated, they've stolen from people. But animals, animals out in the wild, yeah, they kill each other and they hunt and they do this, they do that, but they don't do it out of malicious intent or anything like that. And it's kind of the same with a child, and that's what you see the big difference between the Mike Brown case and Tamir Rice, and that's why there was much more kind of people from across the spectrum that were, and across racial divides and stuff, that were willing to condemn the shooting of Tamir Rice, because he was a child. He was 12 years old when he was shot down by the was it Cleveland police, I believe. And Mike Brown, although he was still a young kid, I think he was 17, 18 years old or so, but he looked like a man, you know what I mean? He was a big kid, he was fully grown, and people see a person like that and say, oh, well, that person lost its innocence. But a kid like Tamir Rice hasn't, and animals can't be malicious, really, not intentionally anyway. And so I think that's one of the reasons why people give a shit more about animals. When a cop shoots a dog, people get outraged. And like I said, what I was saying with the border, man, and I feel like shit all day today. I couldn't even function today. Couldn't hardly get my work done because I sat there in that damn border line for 3 hours, breathing in fumes, and that all day today I feel like shit. So it's one thing where people, well, yeah, let's build a wall, keep all these bad people out just because they maybe look differently than us, speak a different language, and just because of that, they're a lot of them are adults, and we can dehumanize them because of that. But if Donald Trump said, "Oh, we're going to build a big net to keep the butterflies from escaping because we want to keep those nice butterflies on our land," people would be up in arms. The government would be shut down the next day. I know it wouldn't be that extreme, but seriously, man, people would really be upset about that. But the other thing I was thinking about too is that because of all that time I was sitting there in that damn line yesterday, I was thinking about when they build these walls, because the United States is not the only country that builds walls on their borders. A lot of countries do that shit. But I was thinking about how bad it is for the natural environment, for the animals, the migratory patterns and stuff like that. How many animals get trapped around these borders and stuff? Not only human beings, but animals too are getting trapped, and they can't move freely how they need to, according to their natural cycles and stuff like that. And I can only imagine how that damages the natural habitat, and roads and freeways, and the animals get hit crossing the roads. And I know in Europe they're building tunnels and stuff for the animals to get under the freeways and stuff like that, which is nice. But we got to keep in mind that the human the human experience is disrupting like the entire planet. Claire, I know you got a little more to say about this.
Yeah, I do. Okay, so we have kind of exploited the entire planet and just really pillaged all the resources and done damage to, just about every species on Earth, including ourselves. And it's really, I guess it's kind of astonishing to me that we have not done something about this in a much greater way. We're fracking all over in the U.S. and awakening faults that have been dead, totally dormant for millions of years. We have these nuclear plants that are leaking all over the country and causing all sorts of problems, for who knows how many years into the future. I mean, I'm not sure I understand.
Just in Washington State, I don't know if you heard about it. There was a huge leak that they just found in Washington State today too.
Don't worry, zeolite's patented.
It's just I don't understand why we're not kind of looking towards the future more. I mean, I feel like human beings should have some sort of intrinsic good to an extent, or at least some capacity to care and be compassionate with each other, but we just don't seem to.
Well, we're all competing for resources that we've been led to believe are scarce, which no longer are. So that's pretty much what this next whole ramp up they're trying to do to the Middle East is get us the ultimate distraction. Because I think if people realize they don't have to buy gas anymore or pay the power company, I mean, that technology is basically, at this point, redundant.
It would disrupt as the caller was mentioning, it would disrupt the ultimate hierarchy in the United States, which is based on kind of monopolizing over top of like essential needs for survival, which energy is one of the main ones that it's the easiest one to monopolize on, because who's got the you and me don't got the resources to go set up an oil drilling field and open our own refinery and refine our oil and all that crap. I mean,
but we can grow corn, Nick, and we can grow ethanol, and we can have solar panels.
Exactly.
I mean, we can get off grid if you have just enough seed money right now.
Exactly, man, and that's the thing.
Right.
Is fossil fuels it really is like the ultimate way to control people, because you gotta you get everyone hooked on it, everyone relies on it, and then only a handful of people can produce it because it takes a huge amount of resources to bring it to market. And then by doing that, they are able to monopolize and control everybody, dude. And that's why there's been such a resistance to alternative energy, decentralized energy. That's the key, man. I mean, if we switch to solar panel fields and we just have these huge, giant solar panels out in the middle of nowhere that, we don't get rid of the problem. We're still dealing with the highly centralized, distribution of electricity. We need solar panels decentralized on every roof, man, where people create their own energy.
But you also have to consider that, big oil is not just in control of, like, our energy sources. It's plastics and everything else that are so pervasive in our society and our culture for, convenience sake. We have to find alternatives to those as well. And that's, I think, how they were able to kind of insidiously kind of insert their business into every facet of our lives.
Yeah. I mean, they control us, and anytime they want, they'll jack the prices up on oil, and they'll do whatever they want. Until we learn to move away from that stuff, I mean, they're going to keep doing it, and they're going to fight wars to do it. On that note, I got this awesome article from one of our staff members on the Anti-Media about Donald Rumsfeld. He apparently on Twitter this morning at 7:05 a.m. and on Twitter he says, "At 83, I am close to losing hope that I'm close to losing hope that I will live to see a flat tax." Flat tax, which is just some kind of tax scheme where everyone gets taxed at the same rate, which I don't know enough about it to comment on whether it's a good idea, a bad idea.
Trump likes it, so it must be crap.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I know for sure is that our tax shit here right now in the U.S. is totally fucked. I mean, it's like thousands and thousands of pages, so many loopholes. I was finishing my taxes up on Friday, and unfortunately, I had to pay some, and I hate paying them because I feel guilty about paying them because I know it's going to bomb the Doctors Without Borders hospitals and blow up kids in Yemen and do all kinds of nasty shit. I wouldn't feel as bad about my taxes, even though philosophically I'm like pretty much against involuntary taxation, but at the same time, I wouldn't be so upset about it if I knew that it was like, okay, my taxes are going to go to the kid down the street that needs help with his school, or to the family that's hungry, or to, refugees that need a home, or something that's like good. But instead, I mean, like I mentioned earlier in the show, a big chunk, I don't want to go as far as saying most of our taxes, but almost half of them go to like blowing up shit in the Middle East and stuff like that. And now we're going and remilitarizing in the Philippines. I mean, we're about to arm Japan up. We're sending basically nuclear-ready missile submarines to Israel. I mean, you name it, dude. I mean, we're doing a bunch of bad shit all around the world. Wouldn't be so bad about it if it weren't, if I got to choose where it went, or if I knew it was going to good stuff. But I know it's going to bad stuff, so it makes me really upset, and I feel really guilty about paying them. But if I don't, the show will cease to exist. The website will get shut down. I'll be in jail probably eventually. So obviously we can't have that happen. Anyway, on that note, Rumsfeld, at 83, I'm close to losing hope that I will live to see the flat tax. And so he tweeted this in the morning on Twitter, and it just blew up in his face. Like, people were like, I mean, he's saying that he's going to die soon, right? And so, like, I'm going to read you some of these tweets that came out. This is over on the antimedia.org. The title of the article is Donald Rumsfeld just got destroyed on Twitter for being a war criminal. And this guy replied back, at 18, I'm close to losing hope that I will live to see you prosecuted for war crimes. Yeah, well, kid, sorry, but you're going to have to give up that hope because, these kind of ruling class people don't get prosecuted. Another guy says, tweeting at Rumsfeld, he goes, don't worry, there's a flat tax in hell. Everyone pays. That, to me, was probably one of the best. Which other ones do I want to talk about here?
Cheney said, Donald, I'm going to put this iron ass in your face.
Cheney said, Donald, I got a shotgun you need to meet. No, I'm just kidding. Another guy tweeted at him, I'm losing hope that you'll ever express remorse about destroying a country and killing a few 100,000 people. That one's a little more serious, and it's true. I mean, we went into Iraq, and there were false pretense. We lied. I don't know if Rumsfeld lied or whoever, they lied to us, and they told us one thing, and it wasn't the case, and we went and we destroyed and 100,000s of people. That's a very, very conservative estimate. I've seen estimates of, ever since the war on terror started, that over 1 million people have died over there. And I've seen other estimates saying up to 4 million. It's hard to pin down the exact amount because no one really keeps track of the amount of people dying over there.
Well, in Iraq alone, like, I actually researched that because they don't keep very good track of, civilians killed. And in Iraq alone, it's likely close to 1.5 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's horrible.
And they planned that war from the 90s, late 90s, too. They were planning that.
Yeah, I think is that you, Jake?
Yeah, that's me. I'm here.
So we're joined by Jake Anderson. I was hoping to see you in the studio tonight, but
I'll be there on Wednesday.
Awesome, man. Awesome. How you doing, man? You out here in San Diego for long?
Yeah, I'm good. Sorry, the reason I had to do yoga. That's why I was late. I was gonna lose my mind. This world breaks you down, man. You gotta have some kind of release.
You gotta regenerate.
Yep. Anyway, back to Rumsfeld being a war criminal.
Yeah. So a couple more of these tweets here. I just some of them get pretty good. This guy Jason tweeted at him, the rest of us are losing hope that you'll ever see the inside of a prison where you belong. That was a good one. And then someone by the name of Parm said, I hope you're sentenced at The Hague. So that was good. And yeah, I mean, it was just a bunch of people blowing up on this guy. I'm kind of glad, that's one good thing about social media. And Jake, you actually mentioned this in your article. I think we published it today about about how UC Davis was trying to bury that story. But this is kind of an example of like the democratization of our communications here with Twitter and social media, where we can people literally can tweet directly, talk at these people. I mean, I'm sure he didn't read all these tweets. He probably saw a couple and was like, "Shit, I better shut my phone off." But it really is. It lets us go directly at them. I mean, when before, what would you send a letter to your president hoping that he'd read the shit? And damn well he's not going to read it.
You telegraph him.
Now you can at least tweet at it, and it's on public record. You can see it.
I prefer to send messages to Obama with Morse code.
I tried smoke signaling with this huge bong that I have over here, but I don't think
that little bird that landed on Bernie's podium. I met. That's a messenger bird.
I thought I seen something tied to its foot. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so
social media, though, is definitely, I mean, there's definitely ways to suppress stuff still. There's always forms of suppression. But, yeah, social media is definitely a really powerful way. I mean, just with the Arab Spring, the way the people there were tweeting out live updates of what was going on, even though the government was trying to shut down the internet.
Yeah, I mean, it is a huge deal. Let me. Who was that trying to comment? One of our callers. We got a caller from 636 area code. Go ahead, chime in on this.
Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, I mean, we really need to look at Israel's history of terrorism against the United States, and just learn from that, with 9/11 and all that shit, and the USS Liberty and the Levant affair and all these false flag attacks. They basically mastered that. That's why we're in the Middle East. That's why America's in the shithole it's in now. And the government, the president doesn't have any power, man. He's got the authority to sign some papers here and there, but he's not making the choices, The real people with the power are the ones you don't see on TV.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the figure. I think you're right about Obama for sure. Obama's a weak president. I think Bush was also a weak president, and they do what their handlers tell them to do, pretty much. Now that's one thing I'm worried about Clinton, is that I think Clinton would unfortunately be a very strong president, and she would actually be the one pushing through these ideas. I think Obama, it's like, okay, his advisors or the people that financed him and stuff get him to do things, and he's not acting on his own account. But with Clinton, I think is even more frightening is that she'd be acting on her own accord, and she'd be toppling governments because she wants to do it, and that's really scary.
Yeah, definitely, man. That's why we got to vote for Trump. You can tell these banksters, these two banksters, they're really opposed to Trump and his anti-immigration policies.
Yeah, I mean, you have your right to your opinion on Trump. I definitely don't agree with Trump on most things. What I do like about Trump, though, is that he is giving the Republican establishment a very interesting scenario that they're going to have to come to grips with here in the coming months. That could lead to much greater political awakenings, I think, than just voting for some guy or for some president. That could lead to maybe some true reforms that we desperately need. I'm tongue-tied, man. That all that inhalation of those car fumes yesterday got my brain all messed up. But I was actually in Mexico yesterday. Coming back across the border, I sat in line for 3 damn hours and had the damn Border Patrol guy dig through my trunk and asking me all these questions about where I was at, where I'm from, whose car it is, where this, what's that. I mean, the border security is ridiculously strong as it is. I mean, a lot of people, I think, unfortunately, with Trump, making all this kind of tapping into this economic insecurity that people rightly have because the economy has been messed up. But I'll tell you right now, it wasn't messed up by Mexicans. It wasn't messed up by immigrants. It was messed up by the politicians and their corporate handlers creating bad trade deals and bad foreign policy decisions and raiding the country of all its wealth, man, taking our tax money that should be reinvested into building infrastructure and that kind of stuff here and actually creating good jobs and stuff like that. And they raided it and they privatized it, sent it over to Iraq, and had Halliburton make all the billions. I mean, that's the problem. I think the immigration is actually, it helps the economy for the most part. And this I think a lot of it is just like fear mongering and stuff that comes out, and people unfortunately buy into it. Call 636. I'll give one more chance. Go ahead, man. Go ahead and say what you got to say, and then we got to move on.
All right. Well, immigration, you know what I'm saying? I don't have a problem with immigration. It's just illegal immigration. You know, it's like any other country. We're basically coming a minority in this country, you know? That's the design this swamp. Go to Europe, they're passing the same laws. Like immigrants are flying over the border. They're creating these conditions in Syria and all that, so these people got to leave their country. Where are they fleeing? All across Europe, brother. They're passing all these immigration laws in Europe, all across Europe. In Israel, they got the strictest immigration laws. A Jew cannot even marry a non-Jew, brother. Try to make minorities out of European Americans. John's pussies, man. The banksters, boy. They gonna come. 9/11, boy, that shit was all the Jews.
All right, man, we're going to have to move on. Thanks for your call, though. Oh, that was an interesting one.
I think that was Donald Rumsfeld.
Nah. Oh, man. And I don't know how many times we have to talk about this, but I definitely understand where the Trump supporters come from. I don't think they're all coming from a place of hate. I think a lot of them are people that hail from the middle class and are now becoming third-class citizens, and they're wondering what the hell happened. And so they're looking for answers, but unfortunately the stuff that Trump gives out as the answer or the solutions are very short-sighted and ill-advised and don't look to the underlying issues. And blocking off the border is not going to fix our issue with the economy. I mean, immigration is one of the few things that is actually keeping the U.S. economy afloat right now. If it weren't for this influx of people and customers, you know, all these new people are new customers and new renters and new people that need to buy houses and need a place to live. If it weren't for that, I mean, that's the only thing keeping the real estate afloat, the economy afloat, the demand afloat. I mean, the farming, the agricultural sector afloat. I mean, the immigrants are helping the economy. They're not breaking it. But, you know, people, the reason people are wondering or at least scapegoating against Latinos is because there has been a major influx. There has been a major influx of immigration ever since the last couple decades. But the reason being, it's not that they're up here because they're just, you know, it's like, oh, we're going to go take those damn Americans' jobs because we just feel like doing it. That's not the case. I mean, the reason being is that people are leaving because their economies have been destroyed by U.S. policies. I mean, how many times we got to talk about this? How many times do we need to go and talk about the Monroe Doctrine? I think just not enough people know about the damn Monroe Doctrine to make any comments on immigration. If you don't know what's going on with the Monroe Doctrine, please go Google it before you say anything more about immigration, and maybe you'll start to understand the true depth of why all these people from Latin America try to leave their home countries and get to the United States, because there's a big reason, and it's the Monroe Doctrine. We've gone in and pretty much either toppled or placed a controlled government in every single country in the Western Hemisphere, excluding Cuba and Venezuela. Every other country has fallen under the influence of the U.S. corporate empire, and they're all exploited for our own corporate gain. And unfortunately, unlike the empires of back in the day, the American citizen, unlike the Roman citizen, doesn't share in those pillagings. We don't get any part of the prizes that they take from these countries. The corporations privatize all that stuff, and they make us.
Or what we do get is just crap.
Yeah, you know, and it's like socialism for them, right? We pay for all the stuff that the CIA goes over there and they topple governments, or that they send the military into Panama or Guatemala, whatever. Nicaragua, Honduras, the most recent one that Hillary Clinton backed in 2009 was in Honduras. You know, it's socialism for us. You know, we pay for all that stuff. The average taxpayer pays for it. And then these huge corporations make all the benefits from it. And then it's capitalism for them. And so it's the worst of both worlds. That's what we're dealing with in the United States. The worst of socialism and the worst of capitalism combined. And I don't know what to call it, crony statism, whatever. That's what it is. I mean, it's it's pretty much we've gotten the short end of both sticks here. And Halliburton and all these companies that have gotten hugely rich off of these trade deals and off of toppling governments and overthrowing Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi in Libya and whatever, they're all getting rich, and we're spilling blood, and we're paying for it, and it sucks. It sucks, and that's another reason why I don't want to pay taxes.
Nick, I'll tell you what. As much as I disagree with that last caller on a number of things, if we need, the mentality of, we need Trump people and Bernie people dissatisfied with the establishment. We need them all to join together.
Exactly. I agree with you on that. I lose patience because a lot of the arguments are too short-sighted, or they're not, understanding of what's actually going on. And I guess I can't blame them. I mean, you can't blame people because, that caller that just called in is probably 8 times more well-informed than the average American already. You know what I'm saying? I mean, all we can do at this point, I think, because we're not in a position now where we're going to say, yeah, you know what, let's have a revolution tomorrow, because people are too ill-informed at this point. People don't know what the hell is going on. People don't know enough of their history. They don't know enough about the solutions that are needed to make informed decisions going forward. If we had a revolution tomorrow, it'd probably be a major disaster. We'd probably have a new king by the next time, in 4 years from now. We'd probably be electing an emperor or some shit. And that's not what we need, man. We need to go the opposite direction, towards self-government and more autonomous type of communities and things like that. Not some top-down thing, but that's what many revolutions lead to. Emperors and shit. Look at the French Revolution, the U.S. Revolution. I mean, we got rid of one king and replaced him with another, with a couple more people to their bureaucracy to help tell us what to do. And even in Rome, I mean, their republic turned into a dictatorship pretty quickly. Hitler came to power at least semi-democratically. And so many times these kind of revolutionary ideas and stuff, they're either hijacked, or they lead us down this pretty bad mob mentality that leads us down an even worse road. So I think, on one hand, I think the people that are supporting Trump and Sanders right now are a huge asset, but they also need to be able to be open-minded, right? They need to be able to soak in some new information and be able to learn from what's gone on in the past, and maybe we can correct those issues the mistakes we've made in the past, and use it in the future to help us make a more, free world, I guess. I mean, let's start a roundtable here, because I don't really feel like talking about the news tonight, man. I've just had such a crappy day, and like I said, I was inhaling fumes for so many hours last night that I don't think my brain's functioning right now. Jake, before we start this roundtable, I want you to tell us a little bit about this UC Davis thing, because this is really relevant, because this kind of stuff is also being used for the elections, and I've seen some talk very recently about how Facebook could manipulate the election in particular against Trump, and then also about how Google search results can highly influence elections as well. But this has to do with UC Davis and how they tried to get rid of Claire's favorite incident where the damn cop was pepper spraying all those kids. I'm just joking, Claire. I know it's not your favorite, but you always post these funny pictures of that guy being photoshopped, so I had to make that comment. Anyway, Jake, tell us about this article.
Well, I saw it printed. I saw the subject printed elsewhere, and I felt compelled to write about it. And the reason is because I've been working in search engine optimization for like 5 or 6 years, and so I've seen firsthand, what happens. And so essentially, the story is, UC Davis had this, horrible incident that occurred there where a cop, just point blank sprayed the pepper spray in the protester's face. He ended up getting like a $38,000 settlement for it. So, because he got so abused, by the people who were, mad at him. He got abused, so he got a settlement. Anyway, so what UC Davis did is they hired a public relations firm, and I don't know the exact mechanisms, or I don't know the exact order in which it happened, but essentially what you do, search engine optimization is used to, it can be used to bury stories that you don't want to see. And it's kind of like gaming Google's algorithm. And so it's widespread. I've seen it all over the place. I've seen, I couldn't print this in the article because I don't have the exact links per se, but let me just tell you, I mean, I've seen articles meant to bury life science companies that experiment on animals, and so they don't want Huntington Life Sciences, they didn't want all those stories to appear about how they experiment on beagles and whatnot. So they paid a bunch of money to have a bunch of links to either positive stuff or just off-topic stuff. And so what that does is when you optimize the search results, it pushes down the negative stuff and brings up the positive stuff, because people are less likely to drill, 2 to 5 pages into a Google search result. People usually just stay on the first page.
And go to the second page. I mean,
yeah, right, yeah. So they did that. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen lawyers who got charged with sexual harassment, and it was all over the news and all over the internet. So they did, SEO to push down the stories of their sexual harassment. And I've seen. I mean, I hope I'll probably get fired if the company I work for is listening to that, but whatever, I don't care. But yeah, it's really grisly, and so that's why people need to understand the idea of net neutrality is already kind of a pretty fraudulent notion. The corporations already curate a vast majority of what we see, and we don't even really fully know. I mean, this is on the up and up. This is legal. What I just described. God knows what the social networks are doing, because social media optimization is growing so much, and it's actually factoring into SEO now. So we're entering a brave new world of internet censorship, and it's terrifying. And all we can do is just call it out when we see it. And I don't know why the journalists who found this filed for an information request to get this. I mean, it's kind of crazy. People must have been really all over that university or something, but. It just goes to show you, man, we need to be filing FOIA requests on just about everything, and just constantly, because it's just nuts how much suppression of information is going on.
Yeah, man, and it goes back to this privilege of information that's been the ruling, in the ruling class's favor for pretty much ever. I mean, if you look back at like when at least what we know of for language being invented, it's always language is forever. It's been invented by the ruling or the religious class, which most times work hand in hand with the ruling and business class and stuff. And only for the longest time, only the rich were able to get their hands on books and writings, because all that stuff was handwritten before, and then the printing press came along and kind of revolutionized the state of information in the world, and then all of a sudden anyone could get their hand on a book. And now books. Now we've come so far as like many people don't even care about books anymore because you don't want to carry it around. Now we have this information on the internet, and it's so easy to access. But at the same time, once again, it's a double-edged sword. Whereas books and stuff, that's how the Mein Kampf was put out there. That's how propaganda was put out there. That's how bad things happened. And here now with the internet, it's a great tool to spread information, but also it's a great tool for censorship. It's a great tool to mislead people. It's a great tool to put out disinformation and things like that. And that's what's going on here with UC Davis. They wanted to bury the fact. They want to bury the fact that they brutalized the hell out of people, and they let the UC Davis campus police do that. And so they went out and they manipulated Google to try to bury search results. Thankfully, due to what's known as the Streisand effect, which is basically when you try to hide something and people find out about it, then even more people start finding out about it, is what happened here, because this PR stunt, they wasted $175,000 because it backfired. All it did was like bring more attention to the issue here.
Right. Yeah. If you Google UC Davis right now, the very first search result is student group demands UC Davis chancellor's resignation over image scrubbing. And the second result is UC Davis, welcome to the University of California, Davis. So yeah, it definitely backfired. You can only suppress the truth for so long.
Yep, exactly. So, it's pretty interesting stuff. Propaganda, censorship, it's the name of the game. They've been doing it forever. They're going to keep doing it. We just got to stay a step ahead. And like you said, Jake, FOIA requests, man, that's a good way to get information out there. And the thing that is going to save us, it's not Trump, it's not Sanders, it's not anything, but it's freedom of information, the spread of information. I just got done reading Fahrenheit 451, and God, what a great book. But at the end, it teaches you a lesson. The lesson at the end was like, you know what? If people would just remember the past. And that's what information is all about. That's what language and literature and articles and stuff, it's to teach you something that you can remember. And, the anti-media, we're constantly covering corruption and scandals and cronyism and that kind of thing. It's because we want you to remember that this stuff is going on so that in the future you can make an informed decision, right? And so that's what it's all about, man, is spreading this information. The more information that people have, the more people read, the more people find out about the wrongdoings in this world, the more they can make a better informed decision moving forward. And that's what it's all about, is remembering the things that have gone on. Like I was mentioning earlier with the revolutions, with the French Revolution and how it gave rise to Napoleon and the revolutionary fervor in Nazi Germany that led to the rise of Hitler, and how this fervor now could lead to a guy like Trump. And who knows, we don't know yet, but judging by history, it's not looking good if we elected a guy like Trump, but it's stuff that we need to do, and spreading information is the single greatest thing we can do right now, because we're not in a position to say, hey guys, here's the revolution and you all need to get on board with it, because at least for me personally, I don't want to be responsible for sending people down the path of a revolution that who knows if the shit's even going to work out, and who knows if a bunch of people are just going to die for nothing, for only to have a king put in place in a couple years after that, or a dictator, or just a brand new government that in a couple years repeats the same exact problems that we're dealing with right now. The American revolutionaries, the founding fathers, they saw an issue. They had a revolution. They thought they were going to fix the issue, but I'm here to tell you right now, they didn't fix it. The United States is the single largest empire on the face of the damn planet right now. They didn't fix anything. In fact, you can argue that it made it worse. You replaced the British Empire with the American Empire, and that's pretty much all you did. You know what I'm saying? So we got to be more informed, much more informed than the founding fathers were. Our next revolution has to be much, much more intellectual, much more well thought out, and with better solutions than just creating a new republic. This is an idea. The idea of republics and democratic republics, it's been tried and failed for millennia. The Greeks started it out back in 400 BC, 500 BC? I don't even know exactly. The Greeks did it, and then that led to Alexander the Great. You know what I'm saying? And then the Romans tried it, and that led to Caesar. This idea, it needs to be improved on, man. And so we're not ready for a revolution yet, I don't think. I think the revolution is happening right now with information, and it's happening with the internet. And it's spreading this information so people can remember this shit and know what's happened before and what doesn't work. Because I'm tired of making the same mistakes over and over again. I didn't mean to shut the conversation down. We got one minute left. Quick roundtable. Final thoughts, DB.
I got nothing.
Claire. Oh, we lost Claire. Jake.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say I try and get as many links going to the anti-media as possible. So if the bad people can game the system, so can the good people. We're going to have to get devious and crafty, fight back. That's why I like what Bernie's doing right now, man. He's getting nasty. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's what we forgot to mention. New York primary tomorrow. It's going to be a big day. Looks like Trump is basically going to blow it out, but the Sanders and Clinton race is still pretty close, so we'll have to see how that plays out. We'll be talking about that on Wednesday. Thank you all for tuning in to the Anti-Media Radio. Once again, 5 days a week here on UCY.tv. Same place, same time. Also on the antimedia.org/radio. Peace out, everybody.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.